That introduction. I actually begged off this panel because I haven't actually built anything, but I'll try to make it interesting.
Didn't stop me.
None of this stuff has been built. Stage, right?
My day job is that I work for a luxury rental apartment developer and decidedly non-new urbanist apartment communities. And then in my spare time, I have this thing called Townhouse Center, which is a website, blog, set of resources, and recently has become an entity that does projects in the real world, not development, but promoting small-scale, fine-grained urban infill development in the Miami area. So townhousecenter.org, you can go there and check it out, and my handle is @townhousecenter. Thank you. And I occasionally tweet. What are we doing in Miami? We have a city that's ripe for typologies. We have a city that's primarily platted at the 50-foot width and anywhere from 100 to 150 feet deep. And that is the vast majority, if not all of the city of Miami, which has a form-based code of Miami 21. We have the T4, which was an increment that didn't really exist in the previous zoning code, which is great for townhouses. It's a zero-side setback, 3-story code, and it applies to about 1,000 acres of the city. So if you could figure out T4 on a 50-foot wide lot, you could build quite a lot of it over the decades as the increments of density expand out from the central area. So that's sort of where the two things that I'm showing you are coming from, is how can we figure out T4 in Miami given the traditional lot structure of Miami. And here you can just kind of see. So I applied to the Knight Foundation and I got a grant to hire an architect to create a set of schematic drawings for a T4 prototype building and put those plans on the internet for free. So kind of Miami's first entry in our pattern book. So that's the first thing that I'm going to show you. And the second thing is my subsequent, kind of taking that idea and hiring a local architect and continuing to refine it. So the plans that the Knight Foundation grant paid for are available at highresmiami.tumblr.com. And this is a website that the architect Brian Phillips from ISA in Philadelphia set up to host the free schematics, as well as a little brochure that he did, very nice, explaining the merits of fine-grained infill development. So you can go here and download those resources. Brian Phillips had done the 100K house in Philadelphia, which is a type that he designed, 2-story stick-framed townhouse prototype that he was targeting $100,000 per unit hard cost. So he had done a typology exercise. He had also done the low-cost exercise, and I thought, I want that guy's thinking applied to Miami. So that's why I worked with Brian. Here's how it lays out. This obviously, it's a 20-foot, 25-foot wide type, so you can fit 2 of them on a Miami lot. Brian liked the idea of, rather than an enclosed stairwell, like in a traditional northeastern brownstone or townhouse, making it an exterior staircase and a breezeway to take advantage of South Florida's climate. And also reduce operating expenses, because obviously you wouldn't need to condition those spaces. And we also designed it to have flexibility. So you could have a ground floor commercial, you could have a ground floor 2-2, You could have second floor 2-2 or 1-bedroom units and configure it in different ways. And all within sort of the same shoebox. And this is rendering it in context on Grand Avenue in Coconut Grove. So it's, it's aggressively contemporary, it's provocative. I think it would be a great fabric building, variations on a theme to build this in Miami. And we had one really nice public presentation in the Little Havana neighborhood where community stakeholders and wannabe developers came out and learned about this typology, this design, but also something a little bit more generally about maybe how to be a small developer. The hope is that if we can figure this type out, that we could create an army of new small developers to build out this kind of fabric in Miami. You'll note that it doesn't have parking, and that is something that we did consciously. Miami 21 requires 1.5 spaces per unit, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about why that's a serious problem. So after that, after Brian came up with his design, we put it on the internet, had a community meeting in Little Havana where most of the T4 is. I decided to take that concept and refine it and make it a little bit more my own with the local architect. And this is some similar typology as the floor plan. It's a 2-2 on the ground floor, 2-2 on the second floor, and 2 1-bedrooms on the third floor, multiplied by 2, that's 8 units on the lot. And here it is in context with balconies. Ground floor has 14-foot ceilings, so it's adaptable for future residential or future non-residential use. Wanted to talk a little bit about the parking requirements, so some obstacles to why this hasn't gotten built in Miami. And just in general, I think that there are significant obstacles to small-scale development in many cities, very unsexy type things that you might run into, but are extremely important to solve, such as required parking. 1.5 spaces per unit, an 8-unit development would require 12 spaces. Doing some simple math, that's 5,040 square feet of parking on a 5,000 square foot lot. It just doesn't fit. And it makes a lot of these small development sites untouchable, undevelopable, takes them really off the table in terms of investment. And so what we're working on in Miami, myself and a number of community organizations, is an exemption to required parking for small buildings. And it reads, this is the capitalized terms is the new language, so it's just a very brief insertion into an existing sentence in Miami 21. That if you're in a TOD or transit corridor area, you have no required parking as long as you're 10,000 square feet or smaller, and you're not close to T3. And so this is being supported, as I said, by a number of community organizations, and the goal is to get it on planning board agenda soon. Why is it important? As I said, it makes small lots undevelopable. Most of Miami is platted at the 50-foot wide increment without alleys. So if you own a mid-block condition, there's really no opportunity to get parking onto the site. Just given the number of spaces that you would need for even a modest 8-unit rental apartment building. So it's extremely important to get that fixed. Wanted to talk about a couple other things. Another problem is that T4 also only allows 36 units to the acre. Now, if you're quick, and I wouldn't, and I'm certainly not, it took me a while to figure this out, but 8 units on a 5,000 square foot lot is upwards of 70 units per acre. So you're saying, Andrew, how are you proposing 8 units on a 5,000 square foot lot in a T4 area? Well, this site that I've targeted is not in T4. It's actually in T68. But that's the first increment of Miami 21. That's the first T-zone where you're actually talking about really urban densities. T4 is 36 units to the acre. T5 in Miami 21 is 65 units to the acre, which I think barely qualifies as urban, but you know, it's close. T68 is 150 units to the acre, but that's where it makes sense. So I'm trying to figure out what T4 should be in terms of parking and density, but it's not. And the only place that it really can be accomplished is in T68 if this parking on the density side, and also assuming the elimination of required parking. The other thing that in Miami you're dealing with is a significant, and there's many other ones, but a significant impediment to small-scale infill is water and sewer regulations, which say that any development on a street that doesn't have at least an 8-inch water main, the developer has to upgrade the water and sewer infrastructure until it reaches the closest 8-inch water main, which can be for several blocks. And that is regardless of the size of the development and regardless of the actual performance of the water infrastructure. So even if there's plenty of water flowing through that pipe, and even if the development is a very small development, $1 million, $1.3 million, $1.4 million, you can find yourself saddled with $300,000, $400,000, $600,000 of water and sewer upgrades if the nearest 8-inch water main is 6 blocks away. So these are some of the things that we're dealing with in Dade County. I think a lot of the previous speakers showed some beautiful prototypes, and love the idea. I'm trying to solve it in Miami as well. We are up against some significant obstacles, and that's it.